there, welcome to the Freeman Conversations. I'm Jobert Oco. Cebu is front and center in the Quincentennial commemorations in the Philippines. We're talking about the introduction of Christianity to the country, the victory in the Battle of Mactan, and the Philippine part in the Magellan circumnavigation. Joining us in today's conversation is archaeologist, anthropologist, historian, and academic Jobers Bersales of the University of San Carlos. He is also a commissioner in the Cebu City Historical Affairs Commission and head of the National Committee on Museum. Also joining us is Audrey Dawn Tomada. She's an anthropologist of the National Museum of the Philippines. She also handles the National Museum in Bohol, as well as in the preparations for the opening of the National Museum in Cebu. Sir Jobers, Audrey, thank you very much. Welcome to the Freeman Conversations.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Okay, so Cebu is right in the middle of all these commemorations and activities, but there are also those who say and who question if we really have to celebrate and commemorate the arrival of Christianity and introduction of Christianity to the Philippines, at the same time commemorating and celebrating the victory in the Battle of Mactan, which actually killed Ferdinand Magellan, who brought and introduced Christianity to the country. Your thoughts on this? Maybe we can begin with Sir Jobers.
If you're a Christian, you should celebrate. If you don't like to celebrate, then you must not be a Christian. You must be an atheist. You must be a non-believer. Every Christian, of course, is very happy that Santo Niño was bequeathed. I mean, Catholics should rightfully celebrate. Those who don't like to celebrate, then maybe they're not Catholic.
Yes, there are people, sir, who are pointing out the irony of the commemorations. As I've said earlier, while we are, of course, thankful to the introduction of Christianity to the Philippines, because that is, of course, plays a very huge role in the lives of many Filipinos. Majority of the Philippines is still largely Christian and Catholic. 500 years of the victory in the Battle of Mactan, which killed Ferdinand Magellan. Is there really an irony there?
There is no irony. I think this is the best opportunity for us to show that we may have accepted the wife of Humabon may have accepted Santo Niño, and Magellan may have introduced Christianity to Cebu. But there was also resistance. That this was not a united set of islands. It is clear proof that what was accepted in one island was rejected in the other. It shows that we had free will. All our islands were asserting their own territorial integrity. No, so I don't know why people make a fuss out of the Quincentennial. You cannot deny that. I mean, the French, they celebrate the Roman conquest of France. It's part of their history. They don't deny that. So those people who want to deny, well, it's like Nazis who are denying the or thing like that. It happened. It's part of history. Then we might as well make the most of it and assert our identity, our what we did as a people, instead of the 400 Quincentennial in 1921. It was Eurocent, the discovery of the Philippines. Now, 500 years on, we are celebrating the acceptance of Christianity, but at the same time our right to defend our territory through Lapu-Lapu.
Okay.
Audrey should add.
What about you, Audrey? What are your thoughts?
For me, there's no irony, no. Both events undeniably happened, and personal opinion, we should reconcile both. What happened before us shapes our history, no, shapes who we are. It has part to siya sa atong identity.
Yeah.
So we learn from it. We take the best out of it, and learn from it. So mao na siya. Controversial magud siya, no, but to me irony, non-issue. We should celebrate these two events.
It's part of
I-
who we are, as you mentioned earlier. Yes, Sir Jobers, go ahead.
People do not understand that the Christianization aspect, colonization, well, not Christianization, but the colonizing tendencies of Europe was already on the table. Even if Magellan did not come to Cebu, there would have been other, and the Portuguese already claimed the Philippines. They would have started already the colonization also later. Then if you notice, there were expeditions sent, Loaiza, Saavedra, Villalobos, and then you have Legazpi. So there was really that attempt to colonize the Philippines. And so blame the Europeans for whatever happened, but that is part of history, no? And I agree with her. There were, let's look at the best things that Spaniards introduced to us, and then we also assert our identity, our integrity as a people. So this is the best time to showcase who we were in that period, and that we were not ignorant. They were surprised at so much gold, jewelry. Simple lagi, panulobras mga chiefs, murag mga abubot karon. They were surprised. These people were trading. They were attacking other territories. They had weapons. They had culture. And the Quincentennial is the best time to accept to the rest of the world. Now, excuse me, dili ni mga gahubong ng mga tao, ng mga adan o iba at that time. We had our own culture. We had our own religion. Religion nga na supreme being. Nag-match na dayon sa mga during the Christianization process after Legazpi. To separate magud, I think, the civil authorities and the conversion process. You have to grant ang mga Augustinians really defended the natives against the depredations, the oppression that occurred pag-abot ni Legazpi, 40 years later, nagsugod, nag-expand ang colonies, kasi nag-claim ang mga civil authorities, mga officials ni Legazpi, mag-create sa encomienda. Namin mga Agustinian ng mga pare, nagpadagsuwat sa Viceroy sa Mexico to the King of Spain nga ipahunong ng mga panghimara, mga natibo, because our task was to defend and convert these natives. Slavery was supposed to be slavery was abolished. They're not supposed to do this to the natives, no? So dunay mga konsensya sa ang mga ubang katsila, ang mga kaparian. Kausala nga wholesale nga batik gitong Spanish colonization. Well, maybe batik gid nagrevolusyon gud ta. But it was a foregone conclusion. They were all looking for territories to conquer. Well, if you're Catholic, ang nakaswerte lang kay carried with it the moral authority to convert. Yatag man good sa. I mean, Carlos I, who became Carlos V of the Holy Roman Empire, was tasked by the Pope. Mag-conquer ka, but you should also convert. So it was both sword and cross. The sword was very painful. But well, if you're Catholic, the cross was masalbar ka. Matukag. No? Inana. So, depende rin na sa imong pananaw. Kung di ka ganahan out the amount of convincing, pareho na sa COVID vaccines karon. Ang mga di mo tuos vaccine, di kita beisang pag imo nang kaligoon og swimming pool nga punog vaccine. Di na ma-convince. Naagi mga tao nga muna na. So, depends on one's perspective, I think. Pero ako, di ko celebrate. Now, I've been proven to the Spaniards na, well, when you arrived, you were guided to go to the Maluco. Nasayop pag yun mo niya, tumong Borneo yan. Tuyok mo balik mo sa Sarangani niya. Pag-abot nyo Sarangani, dito mo kakita og mga piloto, mga guide sa inyong barko para ihatod mo sa Spice Islands. Kagwapo, nga. Kanindot, nga evidence nga. Uy, ito mga tiga-isla. Muning kusog kayong turismo sa Sugbo o sa atong kaislan mo, sige lang kita kailan happy, no? Ano ba?
Salamat. Yeah. Salamat for those reminders, Sir Jobers. And speaking of perception, no, and public response, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Last month in March, nibisita Dirino as part also of the commemoration of the first circumnavigation of the globe. Juan Sebastian Elcano, a naval ship to Spain, actually docked here in Cebu City in March. Interestingly, ironically, o unsa pa mga adjective ang pwede na ito ma-describe, more than the response of social media on the posts of the Freeman on that event, no, majority of the reaction was actually on more than the historical significance of the arrival of the ship and the visit. Much of the reaction was more on the crew member. So parang ni Ari diri nga mga gwapo ang mga Spaniards. What's your reaction to that, sir?
Di ka po natin sila pananaw sa mga Pilipino nga naong. Gipreskuhan sila mga taga. Well, there's something with that. I'm sure Audrey will agree with me. Sa pagsunod pagod sa Kristyanismo, ang usa sa mga lasting impact was the veneration of saints, no? Kaya mga santos taga sa ilong, ang Birhen puti. So na-ingrained yun na, I think, sa Filipino nga, kanabang basta, guwapa basta mestizo, mestiza. Kaya mayroon kayong civilian nga Spaniards gi-assign sa Pilipinas. Kaya we were the last colony. It was so far away. Ang ipanglabay din mga katsila, mga nilad kay mga kinaiya, mga rejects kuno dito sa Mexico o sa South America, mga adventurers. Not all of them, of course. But munang inanaon niya. Pagsunod sa Christianity, mo magina taas ang ilong Birhen. Puti ang si Joseph, Tanang Santos. Wa man tay Santos nga mga listener kog ilong. So, na-ingrained dito yan. Munang atong measurements of beauty, mao ginan. So, pag-abot sa mga Sebastian Elcano, bahala na nang unsa ng barkuhan at unsay kasayan sa atong 500 years. Ato ni minyoon kay paslakibaw nga daghang kay nangamatay sa Spain sa COVID. And the Spanish economy, for those who do not know, is in the doldrums even before COVID. Luoy na kayo ng Spanya. I mean, from a vast naval empire, no, that niyo pagkuan kanang ne plus ultra, nothing beyond sa ilang concept nga the empire was all over the globe. Tanaw kung Spain karon, one of the poorest economies in Europe. Halos luoy siya nga ekonomiya. Pero na-ingrain man sa ato nga gwapang mistiso-mistisaw. Pag-abot nila, mga buang, mga babae tingali ni posta, na di tingali lalaki. No? Lisod siya kay laki mingon nga. Kagwapo sa mga crewman sa Elcano. Pero inana. Makasabot ra ko official man sa gitang. It's not Filipino. There is a problem sa Filipino. Okay? We tend to look at appearances more than substance. Naman na sa value study of 1986 nga. Ang tendency sa Pilipino, limpyo kay katubangan, bulingit kay sulod or luyok. Iwata ng buling sa backyard. And it expresses kanang mapurma, walang laman. So I'm not saying to social media people, nga inaana mo, but makasabot ra ko anong inaana sa datong tanaw. Kaya pinakay do you like itong mga mistiso? Dahil kay mistiso. Mga pure di ito na mula kay painitan og 2 ka oras imbis 15-20 minutes sa ang program. Kaya po 45 minutes sa gabaan sila kamay.
Okay,
Audrey, bago mo ginis Audrey. Ato pa ko tanong sa Audrey og na-impress ba siya sa mga katsila niya.
Ikaw, what was your reaction? Kay grabe ang post sa Freeman the pictures of the Navy crew of Juan Sebastian Elcano was shared almost 30,000 times. Unya, ang worry lagi ko, no, ang concern at the kind of reaction that it was getting is that, or was that, maybe we have not been educating Filipinos enough, reminding that's at least 300 years of being colonized by Spain.
Natural reaction good sa actually when I saw the photos sa Freeman, ako gid ko tong gi-share kay nalingaw food ko. Sa photos. I think it's a natural reaction for people, no, to superficial kanang usay mo itsura. In fact, even ako no, working for the museums, doing the restoration of the churches in Bohol, kay mama natong project sa National Museum of the Philippines. We're currently doing the mo ang mga movable cultural properties, ang mga santo nag-restore. These are all foreign looking, no? Wagid kay kanang wala ito pareha natog now, but I really appreciate them, no? Makaing kagwapa, gwapo. So sama ra sad sa pag-abot nila, gwapa. But it does not, kuan ba? It does not, I think, no, celebrating the commemorations is a good thing because it reminds us na unsa gid ang hitabo sa una, unsa gid ang apart from that bitaw na ma-remind ta na mo ni atong kinahanglan mga commemorations para ma-remind ta unsa gid yung mga hitabo sa una. Mo na siya. I think ang kuan manggod karon no, dali na manggod kay mag-Google tanan, but not everything you see even in history dili pud siya mao, no. History gani ingon sila na it's the story of the conqueror. So nice that we 500 years of Christianity at the same time the Quincentennial kay naana po'y Filipino-centric aspect ba ng perspective nato was food. So mao na siya kung take food ana. Pero
Okay, naara ba ta?
Pata serious kaayo, enjoy gihapon nato. Sayang that I did not see, the both si Jobers man ang access dito.
No, kay as track commissioner, we were invited.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were invited. I mean, wag ito mo dunggo sa Giwan. Nanghandlok dito sila COVID actually. Handlok dito sila COVID. I think they left Spain before COVID. And so what to sila positive. So wag ganit pa sa kai. And yet they were here in 2004. Imagine they were here in 2004. They were here in the 1990s. I mean, not here in Cebu, but they were in Manila in 2004. In I think 1992, they were also there. And nobody noticed. And yet, pag Quincentennial, karag-karag tanan, gusto mo tanaw. Nandiyan sa ito yung mga babae nila, ning kuyog, no? So, nasa tingali ng comment. So, ang kasagaran ng comment, mga lalaki. Mga babae. O mga bayot.
Daghan siya comments.
Wala sila kibaw nga. Kung ano, ilisod ang ekonomiya sa Spain. I mean, ninyo kagkat sila. Manabahog yung ka dito kayo eh.
Yeah. Sir Jobers, Audrey, on Wednesday, April 14 in 2021, we reenacted the very first baptism which happened here in Cebu in 1521. And then, of course, it was followed by the declaration of the Basilica Minore de Santo Niño by the National Museum of the Philippines as important cultural
treasure.
National cultural treasure.
National cultural treasure. What is the impact of that, Audrey, to the Basilica? What will that provide the Basilica with?
Siguro to give context, no, kay naama po yung mga clarifications unsan ang, so to give context, what is a national cultural treasure? So this refers to cultural property that possesses outstanding cultural, artistic, historical, and scientific value that is significant to the nation. So since ang Basilica being the seat of Christianity, and Cebu, in Cebu in the Philippines and Asia, so it really deserves that recognition. The NCT, we call it NCT, it's the highest recognition that the National Museum could make, for cultural heritage. So in this instance, ang atong declare sa Basilica is ang church, the immovable structures, the church, the Basilica Minore de Santo Niño de Cebu, ug ang pavilion sa Magellan's Cross. So it's that recognition is overdue na gyud, kay sa Cebu, the province of atong national cultural treasure, and that is the church complex of Bolhoon. So this is the second national cultural treasure for Cebu, and with that recognition, with that declaration, the state is mandated to protect, conserve, and promote this cultural heritage sa mga Cebuanos. So I think I believe this is a very good move, no? And highly appreciated by the Cebuanos kay daghan na tang magbantay og ang nalikamot na i-protect bitaw ang Santo Niño, ang Basilica, ang devotion nato. Actually, very, very broad man gud, no, ang pwede matawag na national cultural treasure. It can also touch tangible and intangible cultural heritage. So, in this case, ang gi-focus lang sa NCT is the immovable structure. So, mo na siya.
Just to clarify, ang atong gi-declare nga national
Treasure.
national cultural treasure is only the physical. I wanted to clarify this because namang gini-gawas before nga both ang basilica mismo, the structure, as well as the image of the Santo Niño ang na-declare ang NCP. That is not the case.
Yeah, the declaration included the Basilica Minore del Santo Niño de Cebu and the Pavilion of the Magellan's Cross. So, nag-focus ta on the built heritage in this case.
Okay, at least that's very clear. And also, just to add to your statement earlier, to what extent the National Museum of the Philippines make decisions for or on behalf of the Basilica and participate in the decision-making as far as the use of the structure is concerned now that it is declared an NCT?
Kung inani magula, no, kinsa ang property, sila gyud ang naay right to do, no, to sila gyud ang naagi right sa property. So it's really the Agustinians. The presence of the National Museum is to assist them also, so we can provide technical assistance in case there are kanang concerns, no? The law is there to also protect the property in case of disasters, of threats. So we can intervene in that aspect. But ultimately, it's really the cultural property of the Church of the Agustinians.
Where line drawn on?
Inani mo gana, so when we declared it, you turn over na sila. So we come in when there is a threat of kanabang we are there. The National Museum is there to help conserve the cultural property, protect it from defacement, from modifications, changes. So if there are, let's say, if there are modifications to the structure, the National Museum is there to be consulted on how do we proceed to make the parang dignity and authenticity of the structure is still intact, still there. So I think si Sir Jobers dugang mo na siya ang pinaka-role, I think, for the National Museum in declaring the Basilica's National Cultural Treasure.
Yeah.
So Jobers,
the state can provide funding for it in cases of like what happened, no, pagka earthquake in 2013. It was the NHC that helped restore the belfry when it got damaged. So diagid, no, mo gid na siya na the state can provide funding for its restoration. Priority funding.
Just for a piece of history, sa katong mga nakalimot no, in 2013, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck Bohol and as well as affected many structures, not just in Bohol Island, but also in Cebu, including the Basilica. And at that point, the belfry of the Basilica structure was actually damaged quite heavily. It took quite some time for the belfry to be restored. Okay, Sir Jobers.
The impact of the earthquake was clearly a result of wrong conservation practice. Understandably, in 1965, during the 400th anniversary of the evangelization of the Philippines, so the arrival of Legazpi and the finding of the Santo Niño, a day later, mamunto nga event, gi-celebrate in 1965. I think doon na operation gibuhat sa Basilica ni at that time, poor pa ang conservation knowledge, gisiminto ng ibabaw sa belfry, bugat kaayo, paglinog, imbis ang structure was designed to just dance with the earthquake, rigid siya. Yung sayo ang ubos, ang simintong taas, yung sukol, tumba diretso ang belfry. And you know, ang nahog ang semento nga portion, nagpabilin ang parts sa belfry nga lime mortar. So these things you can get when, I mean, the kind of knowledge, the conservation support can be afforded to an NCT. So kami, like, kaning mga structures nga karaan, they should envy the basilica. It's not saying nga dili na kahilabot ang mga tag-iya sa usa ka NCT. Rather ma-protect siya. Kanang, for example, nagtukod og mga buildings around the basilica nga tag-as kayo, dili na karon posible. Debatihon na, kasuhan na, submit na og mga documents sa National Commission for Culture and the Arts before na ipang-approve. Katong nahitabo sa Rizal nga Luneta statue, naman to. Kaya wala man na-declare, wala man naklaro ang law ana sa distance o sa vista. No? But kining sa dool kaayo ang mga buildings, mabot kini sa punto nga kaning mapiktuhan gyud ang structure tungod sa vibration sa whatever unya o buhaton niya, dili na basta-basta. So wala na makatukod diag factory, wala na makaagi diag bulldozer. In city, everybody has to be careful when dealing with the structure and the buildings around it. So mo spill over na ang NCT nga declaration to the road beside it and to the buildings around it. That's called the buffer. Makatabang sad na nila kay kung sila mismo magkaproblema ilang building nga mo action og tapol sa NCT, makapangayos lang sa nga tapad ni NCT nga katumbahon na may masig maka-raise tag kwarta ina na. So funding is available, expertise can be given to them, una protection gina siya for the future.
Yeah.
Salamat both for the explanation and for clarification. I would want to hold you for the rest of the day, but I definitely cannot do that. So my final question for you today, with all these activities that we're having now, and these pieces of history that we're trying to remember, what do you think is the best way, especially for the young, like us, to appreciate history? Sir Jobers.
Well, for the young to appreciate this, I know history is taught man good, so rote man nga type, kanang pa-memorize kag mga dates. I mean, sa puto ng mga bata. No? So the Quincentennial provides the opportunity for everyone to look back, get some of the things that they never learned. And then for young people, anything new will always be good. They'll always love the idea of anything new told to them. So I think dapat that is how history should be given to the young. No? Tell them about important facts, trivial man or whatever, but with proper context and explanation. Only, of course, the use of social media, the use of kaning mga tools sa millennial karon inana, no? Because of the computer and the internet, hindi na gyud mamasa ang mga batan-on og mga novels, matanaw na lang og mga salida, inana. Then, I think, dapat mo shift sa ang teaching of history, ang imparting of knowledge, should also shift to kung magpabilin ka sa kinaraang paagi, nga di ka mo move with the times, well, mabiyaan ka. Okay.
Thanks, sir. Audrey, what about you?
Siguro sa perspective sa museums or sa National Museum of the Philippines, it's really our job to make history interesting to the students with the exhibitions that we come up. And now that it's pandemic time, out of museums na pugos ug sara. So how did we become relevant? We moved to social media. So we put out our exhibitions there. We did virtual tours. So I think in that sense, unsay technology karon dapat ma-apply pod na sa museum so that even if nara ka sa atubangan sa imong computer, sa imong cellphone, you learn a little bit of the of your history. Let's say sa among gibuhat, there's an object, you post it on Facebook, so at least ang estudyante makakita na amo din yang gigamit, kunwari batirol, kabala ka sa batirol, so sa history ana. Siya, it's the most convenient sa pandemic na we are still connected to our past, no? Wala na siya sige sa perspective sa museum. Kaya kung
Sir
dili po
Jobers.
ka mag-change, lisod po to reach out.
Yes, of the University of San Carlos, and Audrey Dawn Tomada of the National Museum of the Philippines. Thank you so much for joining us. And to you all, thanks for watching. For the latest updates and the latest stories, a closer look at this, join us again next time here on the Freeman Conversations.